This may be the most important factor for both short-term prosperity and long-term vitality. Any guesses? Good flow. Because if we do everything else right and we live a long, healthy, prosperous life, it will likely be the slow demise of our internal nutrient-flowing highways, or vessels, that end up being the bottleneck taking us out at the ripe old age of 130. But that's a tomorrow problem. Here's how you can make that even more tomorrows away. Did that make sense? Yeah. We'll just go with it. Yo, what is up? Welcome back to another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftandbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and longevity and do it in an odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic manner. Today, we are talking about the most important short and long-term factor to optimizing your pretty cool meat suit's time on this beautiful floating rock. Good flow. AKA blood flow, AKA blood vessel and arterial function. Because without it, we ain't going very far. And what kind of life does that leave us living, if that's the case? So first, we're gonna dive into one of the growing, little talked about health problems plaguing modern society, arterial stiffness, review the current science on why it's an issue and why it's happening, and finally, as always, finish up with ways that you can restore your flow. Because our internal cellular and metabolic vibe is just better when we're flowing. So let's get moving like a lane on the dance floor already. Listen, you can call that a lot of things, but she ain't no stiff, unlike modern society. Why we're becoming stiffs. Arterial stiffness has long been associated with getting old. So much so that they, whoever they are, have officially classified it as an age-related disorder and a contributor on the list of metabolic diseases that have the average person in the modern world in a state of morbidity or disease by their quote-unquote golden years, turning them into more like the dull gray years. But hey, it's nature doing its thing, right? Yeah. That is, until it began being observed as a growing issue in the middle age and young demographics for no clear rhyme or reason, and ultimately making researchers question if this was a disease of aging, lifestyle, or both. Let's see what they found. At its most basic level, arterial stiffening is the physical stiffening of the cellular structures that make up the artery and blood vessel walls. And here's why that matters. Our arteries and blood vessels are at their very best when they're flexing and flowing with the cardiac cycle. And due to the complex nature of pushing blood down many branching tunnels of various shapes and sizes, having elastic vessels is advantageous for adjusting to different pressures and inflows in a safe and efficient manner. Think about it. Blood flows at a completely different pressure when we're hyped up about something compared to when we're Disney Plus and chillin'. They just passed Netflix in subscribers, so I figured it's moving on. Problems arise when this elasticity gets compromised and ebb and flow begins to get more rigid. So what actually happens at the cellular level to cause this? And how do we stop it? Let's dive into the first question. As a byproduct of cellular and biochemical signaling from causes we'll get to in just a minute, two main things happen that structurally change the arteries and vessels. First, there is a gradual fragmentation and loss of elastin fibers. And second, there is an accumulation of stiffer collagen, ultimately forming a more rigid, narrower, less flexible vessel as a byproduct. And as a result, increasing pulse pressure, aka blood pressure, as well as penetration and pulsatile flow into the microvasculature of target organs, causing mechanical strain along the way, and setting up the respective organ systems as well as the entire cardiovascular system for disease and dysfunction. To give you an example, vascular impairments have been shown to change the structure of our brains, reducing both gray and white matter, thus impacting cognitive function and paving the way for things like neurodegeneration down the line. And might I add, all of this is occurring independently from atherosclerosis, or the condition where plaques accumulate and further narrow our vessels and arteries. Yikes is right. And the increasing prevalence in younger and younger demographics makes everyone beg the question, what is it exactly that's causing all this? This is one of those questions that's easy and hard at the same time. Looking into the data, there happen to be a number of factors implicated in this condition's unfortunate rise. And as you can guess, some of them are the usual suspects. First, surprise, surprise, longevity liability numero uno, as I like to call it, inflammation. Now, we know that an overactive immune system ain't cool for biological school, and this is just another reason why. High secretion of inflammatory cytokines cause an immune reactionary T cell and macrophage response, which ultimately leads to tissue damage, and in this case causing vascular endothelial dysfunction and arterial stiffening. And for context, endothelial cells make up all of your arterial and blood vessel walls. Yeah. And it just so happens that a lot of our modern day lifestyle habits, from the ultra processed foods that we eat, substances that we inhale, and the everyday chemical abundant products that we use, feed this inflammatory fire, increasing the abundance of inflammatory tissues such as visceral fat, and revving up the fight or flight sympathetic nervous system for no biologically advantageous reason, aka stressing us out. Poor Elaine. Now, you may be wondering, how does the activation of the stress response affect my arterial stiffness? It's a good question. And it comes down to how the autonomic nervous system is key for regulating our blood pressure. And chronic stress or activation of the fight or flight part of this autonomic nervous system places excess stress on artery and vessel walls over time, driving damage and dysfunction. And to make matters worse, research suggests that having one or more of the diseases of metabolic syndrome is associated with sympathetic nervous system overactivity, as the oh-so-common condition of insulin resistance and adipokine production from fat cells have been clear contributors to this, providing yet another example of how connected all the systems of the body really are. Now, here's the thing when it comes down to cause. More times than not, the drivers of all the aforementioned conditions come down to lifestyle, as poor lifestyle habits performed over time trigger the vascular endothelial dysfunction and oxidative stress, which activate the pathways that induce vascular remodeling and arterial stiffening. And again, we're not even talking about the disease which everyone associates with a decline in heart health. All of this typically precedes and acts in parallel with atherosclerosis. Damn. These poor lifestyle habits, which produce a highly inflamed and stressed cellular and metabolic state, not only stiffen the arteries and blood vessels, but increase cholesterol, setting the stage for the plaquening of arteries, damaging them further and likely pushing up one's date with destiny. And no, we're not talking about a fun date like mini golf, more like a last date, like going to pet a mother Canadian goose sitting on her eggs. With all this, arterial stiffness has become a silent hallmark of aging. And thus, because I know all of us are on the mission of health and longevity, it needs to be something that we're consciously aware of and mitigating against. So what can we do? Getting more flexible. Vascularly, that is. Listen, I've got some good news. The data around reversal of this condition is promising, showing that our arteries can get their flexible, elastic groove back under the right conditions. In a longitudinal study which displayed that metabolic syndrome is associated with maladapted carotid remodeling and stiffening, the participants who reversed the metabolic syndrome ended up restoring carotid properties to normal levels, reversing arterial remodeling and stiffening. Pretty cool. Furthermore, animal models of diet-induced obesity found that normalization of their metabolic state by diet change led to a reversal of arterial stiffness and sent blood pressure back to normal. This is all intriguing, highlighting once again that what we do, how we live our life and our day-to-day routine truly matters. When it comes down to it, our body is a complex, multifaceted system in which all of the components are in constant communication, relaying information from the external and our internal world, and swaying us, the organism, into a position of good cellular and metabolic operations, or the opposite. The lifestyle that we live is one of, if not the most important modulator of health and longevity that we have, proving that you are in a lot more control than you may think. So creating an internal environment that controls inflammation, limits stress, and promotes organ system rest, rejuvenation, and detoxification will not only have you operating efficiently over the course of years to decades, but have you feeling effing awesome here and now. That's a clear win-win if I've ever seen one. So let's not wait until it's too late. I mean, we do know prevention is the ultimate strategy. Here are some interventions to ponder on. First, one of the best ways to control both stress and eating is high-quality circadian aligned sleep, a topic that we cover all across the How to Sleep playlist. Why? Because good sleep literally checks all of the cellular and metabolic boxes and is the bedrock for all the other foundational components of health and longevity. It's where your organs rest and regenerate. It's where your immune system strengthens and becomes more specific. It's where your brain detoxifies itself, reducing overall inflammation throughout the body and putting it in a position to operate efficiently. So we want to do all that, and I will link our full How to Fix Your Sleep guide down in the show notes below. Next, no surprise here, your fuel. Are you consuming food and beverages which promote cellular and metabolic efficiency, reduce inflammation, and improve your health? Or doing the opposite? The ultra-processed Western diet is not only a way to create an inflamed internal environment, but also a way to drive the metabolic dysfunction, which accelerate the very conditions that impair your flow even more. For example, insulin resistance and dyslipidemia, or high cholesterol. So try and focus on eating real whole foods that your great-grandparents would recognize. Many phytonutrients and healthy fats found across both plant and animal sources will not only fight inflammation and the diseases of metabolic syndrome, but stimulate the dilation and widening of blood vessels, reducing stress in the process. Again, we have a full playlist and guide to help navigate the modern-day food landscape down in the show notes below. Next, we transition to the moving of the badonkadonk. Ironically, one of the best ways to prevent the stiffening of your vital nutrient highways is to move them, both physically and vascularly. By performing exercise that gets your heart and vascular system working, a number of bioactive compounds get secreted that reduce inflammation, dilate blood vessels, and reduce stress. Sounds like a good deal, right? A good goal to aim for is working up to the range of 65 to 85% max heart rate for 20 to 30 minutes a few times a week. This could be accomplished by a range of different exercises, from power walking to high-intensity interval training, all depending on your current fitness levels. Finally, a number of other preventative interventions in the toolbox include grounding and earthing, which is the practice of reconnecting electrically to the earth. This has been shown, as we cover in the full grounding deep dive, to neutralize inflammatory free radicals and improve blood flow. And all you need to do is touch some earth. 20 minutes a day is a good minimum to strive for. And it's advised not to do this near any Canadian geese. Then we have nasal breathing. Again, another topic we have a full deep dive on. Will be in the show notes below. By simply breathing through the natural breathing apparatus that you have, your nose, you increase the secretion of nitric oxide, which dilates blood vessels, reduces stress, and improves overall cardiovascular health. Who would have thunk? And guess what? We're becoming a society of chronic mouth breathers, so use your nose. Lastly, we have stress management in the form of breath work, meditation, and mindfulness. All of these have been shown to drastically reduce sympathetic nervous system activation, putting you in a more cellular and metabolic friendly parasympathetic rest and digest state. Again, we have several videos on these topics, all linked in the show notes below. Now, this list certainly isn't the end-all be-all for interventions that will increase your odds, likelihood, probability of vascular health over time, but it provides some good groundwork habits for directly and indirectly getting there. This is a journey, and everyone is in a different starting position. So customize it to fit you and your unique lifestyle variables. Know that wherever you are on your path, it is never too early or too late to start investing in your most valuable asset. So take the first step, however small, and start owning your shit. I mean, health. Start owning your health. And if you need a little extra help with that, you can join the longevity challenges in Patreon, where we as a group, we as a team implement longevity-focused sustainable change week by week, habit by habit, focusing on getting healthy from the inside out. If interested, all the links for that will be in the description below. When it's all said and done, the reality is when your flow stops, you stop. So when in doubt, force the issue and try and pet a mother Canadian goose. Wait, are you guys sure that closing line was right? It just seemed a little off.